Now the setup is in a normal residential neighborhood. The residence has a single car detached garage. Upon arrival on my first day of surveillance, I immediately observed one of the subject's registered Harleys sitting right out front in the driveway. I also observed multiple lights on inside. The subject had multiple injuries to his hands, legs, and head due to being struck by a pipe at work. He wasn't supposed to be able to walk much or sit long periods of time or push, pull, drag anything over 5 pounds. So riding one of these big motorcycles might be a stretch with these types of injuries. There was no easy setup for observation on this one. The residence had some shared parking with other residences in the neighborhood, so I just backed into one of those parking spaces and I got all set up. Shortly after I got set up, I noticed one of his neighbors came out onto their porch and smoked a cigarette. Nothing too weird, right? Well, except for it's about 5 a.m. There was no visible lights on inside his residence, and it almost appeared like he was staring right in my direction. After he finishes his cigarette, he tosses it into a coffee can next to his chair, then he walks into the residence. As he walks in, I see him. He glances over his shoulder right in my direction, then he slowly closes the door. This video is sponsored by OREP Insurance and Working PI Magazine. OREP is a leading provider of private investigator liability insurance. Visit orep.org for a quote today. Less than an hour in, I see my subject, a big burly guy coming out of his residence, walking towards his garage. It's still dark outside, so my video capability is limited, but I'm getting some good video of him. I was very thankful that I decided to black out my car too, so my video camera screen wasn't lighting up the whole inside of my car for everybody to see. Next, I see him go into his garage. Then a few minutes later, he comes out. He stands at the garage door smoking a cigarette. He just stands there smoking a cigarette. Then I notice where he's looking. He's looking directly at that residence where the first guy was that I saw, where he lives. And that guy is sitting out smoking a cigarette, watching him too. Now I'm getting a little nervous. What exactly is going on here? I ask myself. Oh well, I'm getting my video. All is good, right? Sure, all is good. My subject eventually closes his garage door, goes back to his residence, and the other guy goes inside his residence too. Ooh, I can relax now. But that was short-lived. A few minutes later, a female walks out of my subject's residence and walks right past my car and right over to the other guy's residence and goes inside. Now I know that there's a chance that I might be burned. Man, I hate getting burned on the first day. I hate getting burned on the first hour, and I really hate getting burned upon arrival. And that may have been just what happened here. But I'm blacked out. I know that nobody can see inside my car, so I decided to just sit it out. If they can't see me, then they may just forget about me. About 30 minutes go by. Then I see that guy come out with that girl that was at my subject's residence. They both walk right towards my car. Now I've stopped breathing entirely, folks. I mean, I don't get scared often, but this was not a comfortable spot to be in for sure. As they approach my vehicle, I hear her say something like, "You are both nuts. Let's just go." Then I hear car doors opening and closing. I slowly look out one of the little peepholes in my blackout. I see the pickup next to me pulling away and leaving with him and her in it. Another hour goes by, then I see my subject exiting his residence, walking down the stairs, walking straight to his motorcycle, and I am like, here we go. Then he stops, he bends over, and he starts doing something to the engine. For the next hour, I get video of him as he is working on that bike, going to his garage and getting tools and parts and things like that. Finally, he gets it running. He then hops on the bike, revs it up nice and loud, and then he heads out, and as he drives right past me, yep, he quickly stares right in my direction. I let him get out of the neighborhood. I counted slowly to 3, then I started up my car and I started to follow at a distance. I had let several cars get between us and was willing to lose him at this point given the circumstances, but no, I couldn't get that lucky. He drove around for a while. He pulled into a few parking lots and then continued. I've seen this game before, folks, and I don't like to play it. Eventually, he made a U-turn and headed back towards me. I made a quick right into an alleyway where there was a median, so he couldn't follow me easy. Then I started making some counter-surveillance maneuvers to make sure he wasn't following me. Now, after not seeing him for about 5 or 10 minutes, I pull over and I call my client and I give them the bad news. They requested that I continue, but at a distance, for the remainder of the day and try with another vehicle the next day. Now I get a few blocks away from the subject residence. I pull over at a large shopping center and I walk over to the neighborhood. I made sure I stayed a good distance away, but I could see that my subject and his bike were at the residence. There he was, working on his bike some more. I'm really watching everything everywhere very closely. I decided to walk the long way through the neighborhood and loop around on another street, nowhere close to his street, and head back to my car. It was a nice long walk. I decided to just enjoy it. Then I hear the loud roar of a Harley starting up, and being revved up, and I hear it drive off. Oh well, I tell myself, he must be leaving. I let my client know when I got back to my car, and they said go ahead and finish the day if I can and just sit where I can get video of him when and if he returns. When I got back to my office, I called my client and suggested that we wait a week to continue, and they were fine with that. Now I get out early in the morning again. This time I just park outside of the neighborhood and walk in slowly, just far enough to confirm that his bike is there, and then I head back to my car. I decided on this day to sit about a half a mile away from the neighborhood's main residence in another neighborhood with a different vehicle and just watch at a distance. About the same time as the previous day of surveillance, I see that same pickup with that other guy and that girl leaving. I figured they must just work together or something like that. Then shortly after that, I see my subject leaving on his motorcycle. Here we go. The chase is on. He heads in my general direction, so I just pulled out well ahead of him like I'm going to work, and I let him pass me. This type of maneuver is very, very useful in many types of situations like this. Now he heads up the road, then he takes a left at the next light. Then he heads up that road and he takes a left at the next light. Then guess what he did? I dare you. Go ahead. Guess. He goes up to the very next light and he takes another left. Wow. Is he onto me or just normally suspicious? Or is he just out for a test ride or what? Now I decided to slow way down and follow at a good distance, like over a half of a mile. He heads back towards his residence, so I pull off. I go back to that shopping center. I go on foot surveillance, and when you know it, there he is sitting on his motorcycle staring in my general direction. I am like, what the heck? Yeah, I am kind of freaked out at this point. Now about 3 months go by, and guess what happened? Yep, I get the same case back. Now round 2 looks a little different. The client wanted to try with 2 gators. No problem, I think. Now I get with the second investigator and fill him in on the case. We decided to take a new approach. He would sit about a half a mile in one direction. I'm going to be about a half a mile in the other direction. We would swap the follow. So if our subject is heading towards him, away from me, I would try to catch up to the subject. The other investigator would go the opposite direction of the subject, then find a place to get turned around and join in the chase. Now this did work. It worked. We were so happy. We followed him to a convenience store where he got some gas, and he went to a grocery store and got a few things. Then he went back to his residence. We never went into the neighborhood at all on the second round. Day 2 rolls around. Then I see the pickup leaving in the morning with the subject's neighbor, with that girl that I'd seen before, and the subject inside. I'm like, okay, this is different. We do the same maneuver, and then we see the pickup take a left at the first light. Yep, then he takes a left at the next light, and yep, you guessed it. He takes a third left and heads back towards the neighborhood. We are like, oh my goodness, are we totally burned on this? Lo and behold, about 2 months later, it comes back again. This time the subject has a scheduled medical appointment. No worries. Client just wants to see how he presents before and after the medical. Should be a piece of cake, right? I work it by myself. I just set up in a neighborhood almost 2 miles away. The subject has a very long stretch of road to come down, so my plan was to watch from inside this neighborhood, not on a main road, inside another neighborhood in a rental car. Okay, you got it, 2 miles away. I have my binoculars up. I see him crest the hill 2 miles away. I throw my car into gear. I drive through the neighborhood and take back streets all the way over to the clinic. Now, this is a huge clinic, folks, almost 2 city blocks. I set up way back in the parking lot where the employees park, and I watch the entrance. Here he comes on his bike. First I hear him, then I see him. He comes in. He drives around the parking lot 3 times. Yes, he made 3 trips around all of the parking lots. Then wait for it. Wait, he parks in the middle of the parking lot that I was in. He gets off his bike. He stood staring right in my direction. And then he sticks his whole hand up with a 1-finger salute. Then he turns around, he grabs a cane off of his bike, and he walks into the clinic. About an hour later, he gets out of his appointment. Now, I had moved to the furthest parking lot away, and I got out and I went on foot surveillance. I went in and I found some seats inside the clinic, and I just sat there waiting for him. He walked right past me and never took a second glance. I let him get halfway through the parking lot. All the time I was shooting video with my covert camera. I got up, I walked closer to the front window, and lo and behold, he suddenly turns around, raises his hand, gives the old 1-finger salute, puts his cane on his bike, jumps on his bike, and away he goes. Now at this point, I am not sure if I'm burned or ever was, or is he just doing things just in case? I may never know. I worked this case again a couple more times with other investigators, as well by myself, as well other investigators worked the case many times without me. Every time, weird, suspicious things happened with this subject.